Hello Minglaba. Hello everybody. Welcome back to Myanmar MMTV's news program of the week. We have brought together and will now present the situations of interest between the world countries and Myanmar, Myanmar's internal situation, and the difficulties that are now currently being faced domestically. My name is 𝐀𝐮𝐞𝐤𝐿. Here's the news summary. First, Union Prime Minister holds a town hall meeting to address public needs and the situations. Next, Myanmar's nationals in UK and the US protest China's interference in Myanmar's affairs. After that, US lawmakers call on government to support Myanmar resistance forces against military junta brutality. Fourth, severe human rights violations faced by political prisoners in Myanmar. Then, over 130 civilians killed in over a month of fighting in Lashio. Next, Myanmar's Memorandum of Understanding Uturns workers in Thailand, requiring them to provide 25% salary remittance to families. Then, Myanmar's jet currency falls to record low. After that, 114 civilians massacred in airstrikes over 7 months. And finally, the AAPP reports over 80 civilian deaths in 1 month. Now, let's move on to the news. Union Prime Minister holds town hall meetings to address public needs and situations. Union Prime Minister 𝐍𝐿 of the National Unity Government recently conducted a series of video conference town hall meetings to address the public's concerns and needs. Over 5 meetings, attended by more than 1,000 people from 5 townships in 𝐍𝐞𝐰𝐬 regions, discussions centered on the current situation and specific issues that the public wants the NUG to address. During these meetings, the Union Prime Minister, along with Union Ministers, Deputy Ministers, Permanent Secretaries, and other government officials, provided updates on the activities of relevant ministries. The Prime Minister's office announced that records of these meetings will be published for public access. Next, Myanmar nationals in the UK and the US protest China's interference in Myanmar's affairs. On July 30th, Myanmar nationals staged a protest in London and New York City against China's involvement in Myanmar affairs. In London, approximately 150 Myanmar nationals gathered in front of Chinese embassy demanding that China cease its support of the Myanmar military junta and halt the sale of military weapons to them. Meanwhile, in New York City, Myanmar political activists rallied in front of the Chinese mission to the United Nations, condemning China for obstructing the Myanmar Spring Revolution and interfering in Myanmar's struggle for democracy. Next, we have US lawmakers calling on the government to support Myanmar resistance forces against military junta brutality. On July 29th, the United States Senators sent a bipartisan letter to the Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, and USAID Administrator, Samantha Power, urging them to develop a proactive policy on Myanmar to enhance diplomatic relations and support the resistance forces during this critical time. The letter was issued by 5 senators who are actively involved in Myanmar's affairs: Democratic Senator Ben Cardin and Jeff Merkley, and Republican Senators Todd Young, Mitch McConnell, and James Risch. Our diplomatic efforts should involve close and continued engagement with traditional constituencies such as the National League for Democracy, the NLD, and the National Unity Government, the NUG, as well as ethnic organizations who have recently gained and are holding considerable swaths of territory across the country, wrote the lawmakers. The senators emphasized that the People's Republic of China manipulates all sides of the conflict to advance its strategic interest and influence in the region. The United States should also revisit the Burma sanctions regime and explore new accountability actions, including those that target the aviation fuel sector, to maintain pressure on the junta and deprive it of the financial, economic, and military resources it needs to continue its campaign of violence against the Burmese people, the lawmakers continued. They also expressed concern over the State Department's and USAID's insufficient implementation and unnecessarily narrow interpretation of the non-lethal assistance provisions of the Burma Act. Resistance groups are facing relentless military attacks and indiscriminate bombings by junta forces. Providing these groups with non-lethal items such as medical equipment, body armor, early warning radar systems, drone jammers, and similar tools to use against the junta's ISR drones will give them additional protection from these regime attacks. The lawmakers stated, "We reaffirm Congress's willingness to coordinate closely with you to find strategic and impactful ways to assist the Burmese people, avoid a protracted conflict that impacts the broader region, prevent entrenched PRC influence, and work in concert with partners and allies. On December 15th, in 2023, the U.S. Senate approved the National Defense Authorization Act, the NDAA, which provides support to those fighting for democracy in Myanmar. Next, we will report on the severe human rights violations faced by political prisoners in Myanmar. On July 31st, the Foreign Correspondents Club of Thailand, FCCT, hosted a discussion to introduce the International Commission of Jurists briefing paper titled Unseen and Unheard: Violations of Women's Rights in Myanmar. The report highlights the severe violations of human rights and sexual abuse faced by women in Myanmar. It compiles information from interviews and engagements with former female political prisoners, referred to in the report as Women Deprived of Liberty, WDLs, and their legal representatives and local civil society groups working with WDLs. According to international jurists, female political prisoners in Myanmar, detained for their opposition to the military dictatorship, have been subjected to torture during interrogations. Pregnant female political prisoners have experienced miscarriages due to the brutality of these interrogations. The report notes that women in detention face denial of access to gender-specific medical care, difficulty accessing outside medical facilities even in emergencies, and are subjected to intrusive strip-and-body searches. Notably, women in notorious prisons like Insein, Chai Morau, Dai U, and Tayawadi experience more severe human rights violations compared to ordinary female prisoners. Tom Andrews, the United Nations Special Rapporteur on the situation of human rights in Myanmar, participated in discussion online. The Women's League for Burma, WLB, reports that violations of women's rights have increased by 50% compared to previous years. As of July 12, 2024, more than 4,000 women have been arrested for political reasons, with 1,560 currently serving prison sentences, according to the Assistance Association for Political Prisoners, AAPP. In next news, over 130 civilians have been killed in over a month of fighting in Lasho. According to a report in Taong National Liberation Army, TNLA, released on July 31st, more than 130 civilians have been killed in Lasho, northern Shan state, over the past month due to the ongoing military airstrikes and heavy artillery. The TNLA's report details that 36 days of intense conflict, 170 individuals were injured, and 105 homes and religious buildings were destroyed. On July 29th, according to the TNLA, 5 residents in Ward No. 7 were injured, and 15 houses in Ward No. 9 sustained damage. The situation has been dire, with difficulties in retrieving the bodies of those who have died due to the conflict. A social worker in Lasho noted difficulties in retrieving the bodies of civilians who have died due to the ongoing violence. A social worker in Lasho noted difficulties in retrieving the bodies of civilians who have died due to the ongoing violence. The military junta has reportedly been conducting daily airstrikes under the pretext of targeting the TNLA and allied forces in Lasho. The Myanmar Democratic Alliance Army, MNDAA, has claimed control of most of Lasho, while the military junta maintains that its northeastern military command in Lasho has not fallen. Next, we have Myanmar MOU Uturns workers in Thailand requiring them to provide 25% salary remittance to families. Starting August 1st, Myanmar MOU workers or Memorandum of Understanding workers returning to Thailand will be required to show proof of remitting 6,000 Thai baht, equivalent to 25% of their 3-month salary, to their families in Myanmar in order to renew their MOUs. This directive was issued by the Myanmar Junta's Ministry of Labor and communicated to the Myanmar Overseas Employment Agency Association, the MOEAA, on July 30th. 𝐿 chairman of the Joint Action Committee on Burman Affairs, JACBA, explained that this new requirement comes as many Myanmar workers are nearing the end of their 4-year MOUs and are preparing to renew them. To complete the renewal process, workers must exit Thailand, known as a U-turn, and re-enter via Mayawadi and Chaotang. They need to provide a receipt showing payment of 2% of their monthly income in taxes and evidence of remitting 25% of the income to their families. Once these requirements are met, workers will receive a smart card called the Overseas Worker Identification Card, OWIC. 𝐀𝐮𝐬𝐿 also highlighted that if the Thai government permits workers to continue living and working with only the pink ID card, also known as the Certificate of Alien Registration, it would significantly alleviate the challenges faced by Myanmar migrants. The workers have previously submitted a proposal in the third week of July to the Thai government requesting that Myanmar nationals be allowed to live, travel, and work in Thailand using only the pink card ID, bypassing the need for a passport. Next, the Myanmar's jet currency falls to record low. Gold entrepreneurs reported that the price of 1 tikal, or 16.33 grams, of gold in the domestic market surged to a record high of 6.8 million jets on July 31st, up from 6.5 million jets, alongside the depreciation of Myanmar jet currency. In late June, the price of gold in the domestic market was over 5.3 million jets, and the exchange rate was about 4,500 jets per US dollar. In less than a month, the gold price surged by over 1 million jets, and the dollar exchange rate rose by approximately 870 jets per US dollar. Reportedly, the increase in foreign exchange rates is causing a corresponding rise in gold prices. The Central Bank of the Military Council has established the value of $1 at 2,100 Myanmar jets. Accordingly, the Yangon Region Gold Entrepreneur Association has set the value of 24-karat gold at over 4.6 million jets per tikal. However, at the moment there are no traders who are willing to conduct transactions at these prices. Since the military junta's announcement on July 26 about issuing limited amounts of cash to all types of bank accounts in the second week of July, along with a 30,000 jet increase for government employees and pensioners, both gold and dollar prices have experienced a significant rise, according to gold producers and businessmen. Due to the devaluation of the jet, commodity prices are rising across the country. Food prices are said to be on the rise every day, which is making it increasingly challenging to afford necessities. Before the military coup in Myanmar in 2021, the price of gold was 1.3 million jets per tikal for 24-karat gold, and it has now surged 4 times. Furthermore, the exchange rate for $1, previously 1.3 thousand jets, has now escalated to over 4 times its previous value. Now, we have news that 114 civilians have been massacred in airstrikes over 7 months. In the first 7 months of 2024, local defense forces and residents reported that the military junta's airstrikes targeting civilians has increased as they lose control over territories. Between January and July 29th, there were 8 major incidents where at least 5 civilians were killed in each airstrike, resulting in 114 civilian deaths. Additionally, 287 civilians were seriously injured or disabled. On July 29th, an aerial bombardment occurred at a busy intersection between Pu In Yaotit Village Monastery and Lao Sin Kon Village in Mon State, Chaui Township, killing 19 people, including a pregnant woman. Throughout these 7 months, airstrikes also occurred in Sagai, Sao, Loikao, Demoso, Kampat, Mingin, and Senwi townships. Local reports indicate that these areas were targeted without any active conflict. These attacks targeted crowded civilian locations such as monasteries, schools, hospitals, wedding ceremonies, and other events, causing numerous casualties and leaving survivors with severe psychological trauma. Human rights groups have repeatedly called on the military junta to cease targeting civilians and using them as human shields, but the airstrikes persist. Since the coup, nearly 2,000 civilians have been killed and approximately 3,866 injured due to airstrikes and heavy weapon artillery attacks by the junta. And finally, the AAPP reports over 80 civilian deaths in 1 month. The Assistance Association for Political Prisoners, or AAPP, announced on July 31st that during 1 month between July 1st, 2024 and July 31st, 2024, 84 civilians, 24 women and 60 men, across the country were killed. The AAPP said that the identities of these victims have been verified. Moreover, according to the AAPP, 5 children under the age of 18 and 8 people over 60 were included in these deaths. Mandalay regions and Sagai regions reported the highest number of deaths with 15 each, while Magway Division followed with 12 deaths. The report highlighted that 40 of these deaths were caused by the military junta's artillery strikes, while 16 resulted from airstrikes. Since the military coup, over 5,467 civilians have been killed, and more than 27,125 have been arrested by the military junta, as of July 31st, 2024. These have been the news highlights we have collected over the week. Myanmar continues its tireless effort to achieve democracy and human rights. We urge people and countries worldwide to support the restoration of democracy and basic human rights in Myanmar. Thank you for tuning in to MMTV's news program of the week. Stay with us for more updates. Check back with us next week. My name is 𝐀𝐮𝐞𝐤𝐿. 𝐍𝐞𝐰𝐬.